Hello, folks. Today I just are gonna talk about the little things about what I did onto my Mirage 2000, which is adding some dust weathering effect on the backside of the fuselage and main wings, and the opposite side of the fuselage and wings. Since I uploaded the my entire work of Mirage 2000, many of people had asked me how did I do that, but I just can tell you, this is the things that the method itself is always comes from the armored fighting vehicle weathering techniques. So if you are really interested in some kind of effect, which I did, maybe you should check on the armored fighting vehicles, weathering tips or whatsoever. Maybe that one helps you more like understandable, more understandable that you expected. So in this case, I did the some sort of sandy, effect on my aircraft, but usually, we don't see so much dust on the aircraft, on a when they're in action, they're in lifetime action. They don't put the sand on the aircraft because they when they are flying. I think the most of the dust will be blew away from the aircraft, of course, because which is very high speed and high altitude, whatsoever. And so if I consider to from that, maybe the putting on some mud or sand or some kind of very special effect on the aircraft is more like rather than more like abandoned aircraft rather than live aircraft. If the aircraft itself is dead on the ground for a long time, maybe it should be put it put some environmental effect on it, right? But so when you are dealing with the lifetime aircraft, maybe you should really care about what sort of weathering should you take it, right? And in this case, I just considering about the Mirage 2000D, which is developed in the, Iraq or Afghanistan. They are used by low altitude, bombing combat, and they are flown by very very low altitude into the very sandstorm, you know, sandstorm, because in Middle East area it has very strong sandstorm on it. So maybe if they flew into such kind of environment, maybe they might put some dirt on the backside of the aircraft, because the backside of the aircraft which has the bent or oil leaking or whatsoever, um, sometimes they can't get this dust off from, some other, from the other area, because the vent has some kind of very hot water to cooling the electrical things, or if the engine turns, maybe some kind of oil leaking has begun, right? So if the such kind of material outside outside of the aircraft, maybe some sandy dirt cannot get off, because it is very sticky. Even in a vent, it has the some kind of water on it. Maybe it has some dust. So so according from some kind of incident, maybe I can imagine how they gonna be into the lifetime lifetime condition, right? So I didn't put the dust on the whole area. So it's some very specific area that I put some kind of the that is the reason why I didn't put so much, and I decided to put the some kind of strong dust on the mainly around the engine area or the bent area, and backside, always backside, not front side. Okay, if you put the dirt on that on the front side, maybe logically there is some kind of very weird. I mean, I can't say it's incorrect, but if the high speed low altitude aircraft has flown by the so much speed, we cannot see so much on the dirt on the top side, which is like radar column to the cockpit section, right? So I didn't put at all. I just put the backside, which is according from some common reason. Okay. So if so, the weathering self is always considering from that kind of thought. I mean, always thought makes these things is more naturally and logically cool, logically correct, or whatsoever. So especially in the dust, the dust or mud or whatsoever is always basically comes from the ground things, right? Not the aircraft. And the technique itself is pretty easy and not too difficult, but some sort of you need to have some experience, because I did special things sometimes. But basically, I use the some sort of material, which is the weathering master as usual. And if you have some material, maybe you might better to have this the pigment of sand and the dust or effect from making interactive, melting with the thinner. And also I have the sandy wash, and I use the some kind of oil paint. But This is pretty much, but basically the color itself is pretty much very similar, not too far, not too different. You shouldn't use this so much different color on it because it's very sensitive things. So um, the paint itself is always simple, easy to get it, nothing difficult to have it, nothing. The problem is, uh, I may prefer to use the some kind of dry type is very handy, because if you have some ricket type, it very movable, right? You need to have some experience to handle it, because the ricket itself is so easy to move and wiped off, right? Because the ricket itself is you know okay whatsoever. um, Oil paint is used as the dry brush effect, so I don't use the oil paint thin with the thinner. I just directly put from the brush, and then strictly brush on the aircraft model, right? So which means you put very thick surface of the sand surface, right? And but you may take many times if you are dealing with the 1/32 scale. Maybe you need to spend a lot of time to brush with the oil paint without thinner, right? So I use the ricket type in this case. Um, if you are familiar with the airbrush, maybe you can directly put the ricket type into the airbrush. But if the color itself is too thick, maybe the airbrush doesn't work at all, right? So you might have put some thinner on it, and maybe very rigged it's gonna be, but still works. So if I put the very huge area, maybe it doesn't take time. So I use the ricket type into the airbrush, and then brew the entire area, which is more faster than what I did with the brush. Okay, and I think after it's dry completely, I just take the things off with the cotton swab or brush, or like cloth or whatsoever. But where the things that more important things to choose your material is where you put the color, or where you take the color off, is more important. Is always comes from your sense of the feeling. It's not. It's kind of unexplainable. I just If I see carefully the real things, if I see the environmental effect on the real time, uh, it has some kind of answer there, and I can't say where do you put it and where you take that off is more like it stands to your feeling, your sense, right? And the technique is very important, but I think the sense of the feeling is more important, and the taste of your imagine that you got from the real things is more important. Okay. um, Especially the aircraft itself has not show you so much time. It's maybe rare to see, right? Uh, Especially the aircraft in Afghanistan is you don't see so much, right? You don't live in Afghanistan, so there is much things that you need to imagine how it's gonna be or how it's did. um, is always earned in a day life, right? And you know, it's I don't say um, this is pretty easy. I think the sense of the feeling you might have some experience, and you might have if you have a sense, and maybe it's not so big a problem. But if you don't have it, maybe if you simply know how to put the dust on dust off, maybe you can't handle it. You can't get success. Maybe uh, you better not to do that. Okay. This is the I think the worth of the imagination. All the imagination is important on your modeling. Okay. And the take that off the cutter is naturally okay with some kind of thinner. If you put the turpentine oil with the cotton swab onto brush, um, the things is very easy to take that off. You know, nothing so special, nothing so difficult. But if you are dealing with the things, the sand, especially in the sand or some kind of other dust case, some sort of weathered surface is hard to take that off, right? Not always easy. You need to have some, maybe you wiped so many times, in a real life, right? So once I put the dust on it, on with the some kind of color, I put the little bit clear coat, which is lacquer. It's very weird, right? It's very weird. No one did it. No one did this. But you shouldn't brew so much amount of the clear. Just 1 or few seconds is fine. If you brew so much, you can't take the dust off. Not at all. Very strictly are fix it, right? But once you put the clear coat or 1 or 2 seconds, a little bit, maybe the color itself is still movable, but not the same as usual use. I mean, still you can get the things with the other turpentine oil or some kind of enamel oil, but a little bit hard to take that off, a little bit, and the remain itself is pretty different from the usual use when I coat it with the clear coat. But this is not recommended for all the people. I did so many times. I did 100 times. I just got some kind of experience. So how much should I put the clear coat to fix it, to take that off the color, right? So this is not recommended things because this is pretty risky. So I don't explain so much since I uploaded the YouTube account, because this is pretty some the other people maybe this is pretty risky and hard. Maybe you failed because once you brew the lacquer coat on the surface, maybe which is very hard to get that off, right? So a little bit, very thin and very few seconds is fine, and still the effect itself is very still remain to controllable, but not too much. So I use the some kind of techniques like that. The the part by part. It is always according to the real things, and following with the panel line design of the aircraft. It's not it's not so simple all the time when I comes from the sense of my feeling. I can't explain, right? I cannot explain sense of my feeling. Method itself is pretty, well known, right? So, but the where or some sort of things that my taste of my feeling is not always the same, and always change, always developed. So especially in this case, I just add some special effect of my aircraft, which is on the dust, the sound effect. It's not I don't do usually. I don't do not so many times. I think it's seldom to do, right? So it's always challenging. So what I got, the result is not always the perfectly correct. Maybe the next time, maybe I got some point, but I just can say, if you are very familiar with the armor fighting vehicle weathering tips, maybe you can translate these kind of techniques into the aircraft, of course. But the sense of the feeling between weathering taste, between armor ground things or air things, aircraft things, is I think the different. If you have some clear identify of the difference between that and that, maybe you can choose what sort of color or what sort of material should you put the aircraft model. because the some color you maybe we don't use I don't use so much, especially in the mud or effect or whatsoever. Especially in a very dark brown and muddy or whatsoever. I don't see so much on a real time effect on the aircraft. If it is a banded aircraft, maybe I can choose a lot of choice. But if you are dealing with the lifetime aircraft, the things is more like strict to choose. The lifetime aircraft is not so dirt on it. If the things is too dirt, too muddy or too dirty, the aircraft cannot work. So at this time, this is pretty special case in a sand on an aircraft, right? But if you are carefully to see or research on the Air Force or like in Middle East or Operation Iraqi Freedom or Afghanistan whatsoever, ISIS whatsoever, maybe you can see some extremely sandy dirt aircraft in the real time. So maybe it's always up to your search from the real things. Okay. Right. Well, the enamel color, which I introduced, is always handy. And the things that I should recommend is you can take that off with the thinner, which means you can't take so much risk on it. If you missed, you can get the things off. You can try it again. This is pretty high advantages, right? But if you use the other colors, which is like acrylic or of course lacquer, maybe you can't try it again. Maybe this is only one time, one chance, right? So which makes your if you have no time, no opportunity to try that again, you need to have very high stress, right? It's always something to do with your motivation. Your motivation is not always high, right? Sometimes it's very low. Like me, I'm always not 100% high motivation I have. Maybe sometimes I don't want to do this all the time. Very modeling is basically very dull and very complicated things to me. Always have some problem. Always got to do many things. So if you still keep in a lower motivation, the things you may choose you don't have to fail. If you fail, you can try that again. That makes your motivation higher than you don't. Okay. Right. This is enough. Maybe see you next time. I just sorry for just my silly talking. If I have some interesting things, maybe I just got tell you. Okay. See you.